Meri shocks fans with a strong new beginning. Those headlines electrified the Sister Wives fan base, lighting up the internet and generating hours and hours of discussions online. After all those years of heartbreak, of living in the shadows, of being shoved aside and overlooked, Meri Brown has finally chosen to step out into the light. The woman who once appeared trapped in an unhappy marriage is rewriting her narrative on her own terms. Fans who have been with her from day one know exactly how important this moment is. Meri isn't leaving Kody Brown behind. She's leaving behind years of being silenced, years of waiting for a change, years of hoping for that love that never arrived. And now, with her fearless declaration and suggestions of a whole new way of life, quite possibly even a new romance, Meri is demonstrating to the world that her destiny is no longer Kody's, it's hers. So, how did it come to this? Why does Meri's departure feel so much like one of the greatest turning points in Sister Wives history? Let's get deep into the whole story. To appreciate why Meri's confession feels so pivotal, we must return to the history that led her here. Meri wasn't merely another wife in the polygamous household of Kody Brown. She was the first one. She was the beginning. When Kody wedded her, she was his sole companion. With them they began what would become the huge, complex, and elaborate family that America viewed evolve over more than a decade on TLC. But as new wives entered the picture, Meri's role began to change. Christine, Janelle, and eventually Robin came into the fold. And with each addition, Meri seemed to drift further from the center of Kody's attention. What once looked like a love story became more like a distant partnership. Fans noticed it. Meri noticed it. And eventually even Kody admitted it. Meri herself used to talk frequently about being invisible, as if her presence could not be noticed within the family anymore. She struggled to maintain the bond, but the love she so wanted from Kody never came back. Instead, the audience witnessed her being increasingly pushed aside, being part of the family conversations, but hardly ever part of the happiness or intimacy Kody shared with others, particularly Robin. The lowest punch came when Kody simply admitted on camera that he did not want a romantic relationship with her anymore. He confessed that he did not have any desire to fall in love with Meri. Fans were left shocked. How can a husband gaze at his wife and disregard her so harshly? And more importantly, why did Meri remain after hearing something so irrevocable? For the next few years, Meri faded into the background of the Brown family narrative, physically present but emotionally absent. While Kody's relationship with Robin grew, Meri was seen as lonely, quiet, and excluded from the family connection. Fans would witness her quietly sit during group discussion, her expression speaking louder than words could. She was in pain. Social media buzzed with questions. Why doesn't she leave? Why endure the rejection? Many speculated that Meri's faith, loyalty, and sense of duty kept her tied to Kody. Others believed she held on to hope that one day, he might change. But no matter the reason, the years dragged on, and the distance between them only grew. During this time, Meri's storyline was marked by pain. Pain of being ignored. Pain of being replaced. Pain of staying in a family where she no longer felt wanted. And fans couldn't help but feel her heartbreak with her dot. But behind the scenes, something was shifting. While Kody closed the door on their marriage, Meri began to open doors of her own. She began to turn inward, not loudly or theatrically at first, but steadily, quietly. Her bed and breakfast venture became a labor of love. She journeyed more, tried new things, and was around people who appreciated her value. Her social media updates started to change from sorrow to empowerment. She began posting quotes about resilience, growth, and self-love. Fans started to see the sparkle return to her. It was quiet at first, but it was there. Meri was taking back who she was. She was no longer merely Kody's wife. She was Meri on her own, independent, and strong enough to stand alone. The real tipping point, though, was when Meri finally gave up on waiting for Kody. For years her narrative was about trying to regain his attention, his affection, his love. But at some point, she came to the realization that waiting was a waste of her life. And so, she let go. Audiences could notice the difference nearly at once. Meri began speaking more boldly. She smiled more often. She traveled with friends. She invested in her passions. She no longer sat silently on the sidelines. She was moving out into the world with a new energy, one that shouted freedom. When the official announcement came that she was moving on, embracing independence, and even hinting at a new relationship, it felt like the final piece of the puzzle snapping into place. Meri wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. So, what exactly does this new chapter look like for Meri? The answer is both exciting and inspiring. She's been posting glimpses of her life beyond the shadow of polygamy. Photos of hiking trips, smiles with friends, grins that look more real than ever before. She's sharing with the world what joy looks like when you prioritize yourself above pain. And then there's the burning question everyone wants to know. Does she have a new beau in her life? There are rumors that Meri might be seeing someone who appreciates her more than Kody ever did. Although she hasn't revealed the specifics, her interviews and social media accounts have alluded to happiness, friendship, and self-worth like never before. But even if romance isn't the focus of her narrative, her independence is strong enough to stand alone. Meri is demonstrating that happiness doesn't need to be found in a man, a marriage, or a family situation that is no longer beneficial for you. Happiness is found in loving yourself, and she's done just that. The fan response has been dramatic. Social networking has erupted in support of Meri, with comments pouring in describing her as brave, strong, and inspiring. Everyone says they feel proud to see her finally taking back control of her life. Even some admit to having stayed in hurtful relationships themselves, and now regard Meri as evidence that one is never too late to leave. Others have hypothesized the effect this will have on the Brown family in general. With Meri out of the picture, and Christine and Janelle already blurring the lines towards independence, the formerly tightly knit family is beginning to disintegrate before our very eyes. Fans are speculating that this could signal the start of the end for Kody's entire polygamous enterprise. But for Meri, that doesn't matter anymore. She's not defined by Kody or the future of the family, she's defined by her own decisions, and that's a strong turn. Huge question now, what's next? Will Meri continue building her business empire? Will she start her own brand, podcast, or even spin-off show? Would she remarry and build a new love life away from the lens of sister wives? The world is full of possibilities, and viewers are waiting to see where she goes with this newfound freedom. We know one thing for sure is that Meri has entered a season of growth. She is no longer waiting to be picked. She's picking herself. And that's the message that rings out the loudest. Meri quotes Say's tale is not just a reality TV storyline. It's a story everybody can relate to about heartache, strength, and having the guts to leave something that is no longer making you happy. For years, viewers watched her quietly endure, wondering if she'd ever get the strength to leave. Now she's revealing to the world that it's never too late to start over. Her grand finale isn't an end, it's a start. And with every smile, every journey, every glance of her new reality, Meri is showing that the greatest love you can ever know is the love you give yourself. And so when we read those words, Meri shocks fans with a powerful new beginning. They're not just headlines, they're fact. Meri's new life is the tale of a woman who would not be forgotten, and instead decided to rise. And that is why her journey will be remembered. Those words weren't simply a viral headline plastered across social media platforms. They were a moment that seemed monumental to Sister Wives superfans. After years of rumors circulating, quietude, and subtle suggestions of discontent, Meri Brown officially emancipated herself from the narrative that had bound her to Kody Brown since adolescence. With a single bold statement, she announced that she was moving on, opting for a life of independence, self-love, and perhaps even a new relationship. And in doing so, she rocked the entire Sister Wives fan base to its very foundation. The announcement wasn't made in a dramatic on-air sit-down, or via official TLC press release. It arrived as revelations tend to arrive today, a thoughtful but charged message that struck like a lightning bolt on the internet. Meri left words that were plain but heavy with meaning, announcing that she was finished waiting, finished being hurt, and finished being disregarded. For fans who had been watching her heartbreak unfold for years, it felt like the breakthrough they'd been hoping for, but never thought they'd see. What made this announcement so striking was not just what she said, but how she said it. For years, Meri's voice had been the quietest in the Brown household. She was often seen sitting in the background during family discussions, speaking softly while Kody's louder, more forceful opinions dominated the room. But in her reveal, Meri's tone was different, stronger, clearer, almost defiant. She wasn't asking for permission. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't leaving the door open for maybe someday, or if things change. Instead, her words carried the weight of finality. Fans could feel the years of pent-up emotion in every sentence. It was Meri saying, "I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not waiting for love that isn't coming. I'm choosing myself." Though Meri's struggles had been documented for years on the show, the actual announcement still caught fans off guard. Many expected her to remain in the background, bound by loyalty and faith, even after Kody publicly stated he had no interest in being her husband in any real sense. After all, hadn't she endured humiliation after humiliation already? Hadn't she persevered through rejection, through being overshadowed by Robin, through being rejected? That's why this news landed with such power. Fans accustomed to seeing Meri suffer in silence abruptly witnessed her shatter the pattern. It was as if viewing the opening scene of a new book, one in which the heroine takes her own strength. Facebook fan pages posted incessantly. Instagram comment threads overflowed with thousands of words of support for her. Twitter hashtags trended online. "At last, Meri, we've waited all day long. This is the Meri I knew all along was hiding inside of her. Tough, assertive, unbreakable. Kody is going to regret treating her that way." Even media outlets that usually only gave passing attention to sister wives began running headlines. Entertainment blogs called it the end of an era. Lifestyle magazines praised her bravery. Relationship experts even chimed in, saying Meri's decision could inspire countless women in similar situations to choose themselves too. For the first time in a long time, Meri wasn't being talked about as the ignored wife, or the sad figure on reality TV. She was being celebrated as a symbol of empowerment. Meri, Sin announcement didn't just come with words. It came with images that told their own story. She shared photos of herself smiling, radiant, standing tall with a confidence that fans hadn't seen in years. There was no hint of melancholy in her face, no slump in her shoulders. The juxtaposition was striking. This was not the Meri people were accustomed to seeing on TV, passively suffering Kody's rejection. This was a transformed woman, someone who had evidently buried the hatchet, and was now poised to stride boldly into the future. Those photos alone would have made the announcement. They had so much implicit power that fans didn't even need a caption to get it. Meri is free. The moment also sent shockwaves throughout the rest of the sister wives family dynamic. Christine and Janelle had already made their own brash steps toward freedom, but it was Meri fans weren't certain would ever leave. Her departure brought new questions. What would this do to Robin, Kody's last standing wife? How would Kody react to being left behind by the woman who was his original and most faithful partner? Would this break the family unit irreparably, or had this already been done years before? Even without answers, one thing became clear. Meri's announcement didn't just change her life. It changed the balance of power within the entire Brown story. For many fans, Meri's reveal felt less like a surprise and more like a long-awaited release. For years, they had watched her endure humiliation after humiliation. They'd watched her sit in silence as Kody dismissed her feelings. They'd heard her confessions about feeling unloved, unseen, and unimportant. It was too much to watch sometimes. Shouting at a screen, hoping she'd hear Meri, "You deserve better. You can walk away." And now, at last, she had. That's why the announcement meant so much. It wasn't simply about one woman leaving one man. It was about watching someone who had been broken down finally choose to stand tall again. Still, even with all the signs leading up to it, the boldness of Meri's words shocked longtime viewers. It wasn't the typical vague "I need time to think" message or "we're in different places right now" type of update that celebrities often give. Meri's declaration was firm, direct, and final. For a woman who had often been painted as timid, hesitant, and overly loyal, this newfound boldness was like a thunderclap. It wasn't just a small step forward, it was a leap, and fans couldn't stop talking about it. At its core, what made Meri's announcement so powerful was its simplicity. She didn't rant. She didn't attack. She didn't drag out the pain of the past. Rather, she spoke clearly, as though the years of sorrow had coalesced into a single moment of truth. She wasn't asking anyone to pity her. She wasn't attempting to gain anyone's sympathy. She was stating simply, "This is who I am now. This is where I'm going. And I'm not looking back." That sort of bravery speaks to people. It's universal. It's what turned her personal decision into something fans saw as inspirational. Part of the reason Meri's announcement blew up so widely is because her story mirrors the reality of so many people outside the world of television. How many viewers have stayed in relationships longer than they should have, hoping things would change? How many have felt invisible, unloved, or taken for granted, but lacked the strength to walk away? Meri's story became a mirror. Her decision became a lesson. And fans began flooding comment sections with their own stories about finally leaving toxic marriages, about finding self-worth after heartbreak, about realizing that independence isn't something to fear, but something to embrace. In that sense, Meri's reveal wasn't just a personal victory, it became a collective moment of empowerment for countless viewers. Perhaps the most exciting part of the announcement wasn't just the closure it gave to her painful past, but the door it opened to her future. Fans immediately began speculating. Would she reveal a new love interest? Would she take her business ventures to the next level? Could she get her own series, based on life after sister wives? Every possibility felt charged with anticipation. For once, Meri's story wasn't about waiting or suffering. It was about hope, growth, and new beginnings. In the end, Meri's shocking announcement wasn't just an isolated moment. It was the spark that signaled the start of an entirely new chapter in her life. It told fans that the days of seeing her as the forgotten wife were over. From now on, she would be the star of her own story. And as her fans replayed her comments, marveled at her pictures, and posted their excitement on social media, one thing became sharply clear. Meri Brown might have been overlooked by Kody for years, but she'll never be overlooked again. When it was announced by fans that Meri declared her independence, most of them weren't shocked. They experienced a bittersweet rush of relief. Because for so long, they had watched her suffer from one of the saddest roles in the Brown family being ignored. Meri wasn't always the forgotten wife. She was the first companion of Kody, the woman who established the family as a unit. She preceded the fame, the cameras, and the world's knowledge of the name Sister Wives. And yet, with time, her place evolved from being the central figure to being treated as if she were invisible. The question that fans always pondered was, how did it come to this? How did the woman who started it all end up sitting silently in the background, her pain visible to millions of viewers, while her husband openly showered affection on others? The story of Meri's years of being ignored is one of the most emotional arcs in the entire series. When Meri and Kody married in 1990, theirs was a love story full of hope and excitement. She was his first wife, his lawful wife, and the one who shared in the vision of having a big plural family. They shared their faith, their vision, and the notion of being different from the world around them. For Meri, the early years were promising ones. She was more than a partner. She was Kody's confidant, the woman to whom he turned as they embarked on their unconventional lifestyle. Fans tend to forget that in the early pages, Meri and Kody had a relationship that seemed to be impenetrable. But as the years passed, and more wives joined the family, cracks began to appear. When Janelle entered the marriage, followed later by Christine, the dynamics inevitably shifted. The household became more complex, the responsibilities multiplied, and Kody's attention was divided. But it was with the arrival of Robyn, wife number 4, that Meri's position truly began to unravel. Robyn soon became Kody's preferred wife, a reality that was not kept under wraps from viewers and the rest of the women. The attraction between Kody and Robyn was palpable. And although some of the wives grappled in silence, the struggle that seemed the most profound was that of Meri. She transformed from Kody's soul to the always hoping for leftovers wife. Robyn also introduced the legal issues. In order for Kody to be legally married to Robyn and adopt Robyn's children, he had to divorce Meri. Although Meri was okay with it then, admitting later on that she wanted to be supportive, the decision cut deeper than anyone could have ever imagined. It wasn't just a legal change, it was an emotional cut. Suddenly Meri wasn't even Kody's legal wife any longer. She became just a spiritual wife, and that symbolism cut deeply. What hurt Meri even more was that Kody was so forthcoming about not wanting to work on fixing their marriage. On TV, in front of the world, he said that he did not view them as being in a romantic relationship anymore. He owned up to having no desire for intimacy with her, and that whatever it was that they shared is over. For any wife, the words would be catastrophic. For Meri, who'd already lived years of rejection, they were like a confirmation in the negative that she was unwanted anymore. The expression on her face during such moments said it all. She wasn't merely being ignored, she was being erased. And yet she remained. Fans were conflicted. Many sympathized with her, while others became exasperated, wondering why won't she leave. The reason wasn't easy. For one, Meri's faith played a huge role. As part of a religious culture that values commitment and loyalty, walking away wasn't something she could easily do. She also held on to the hope that one day, things might change. After all, she had built decades of history with Kody. Wasn't it worth fighting for? And then there was the family itself. Leaving Kody didn't just mean leaving him, it meant stepping away from the entire Brown clan, the sisters she had lived with for so long, the children she helped raise, the lifestyle she had once chosen with pride. That kind of detachment isn't easy, even when you're hurting. The middle years of Sister Wives were especially hard to watch for Meri fans. She became a ghost in her own family. Group discussions revealed her sitting quietly, usually on the edge of the couch, or at the end of the table. Her voice was quiet, nearly tentative, as though she didn't wish to disturb the others. While all this was going on, Kody tended to brush her worries aside or gloss over her emotions. More than once, he discussed her as if she were an encumbrance, not a spouse. All the romance between them had disappeared, and even Meri acknowledged that she felt invisible. This wasn't editing, nor was it dramatization, it was reality. The seriousness in her looks, the eye contact evasion, the fidgety laughter whenever uncomfortable topics were raised, viewers could read between the lines. Meri was hurting, and she hurt silently. Sounded to her pain was the notorious catfishing scandal. Being alone and vulnerable, Meri went into online dating with one she thought was a man who was interested in her. It became one of the most embarrassing public moments of her life, as it ended up being a woman misleading her. The scandal was being held over her again and again by Kody, by the family, even by fans who judged her decisions. What everybody missed, though, was what the scandal showed. Meri craved attention, validation, someone to love her again. She hadn't gotten it from Kody in years, and so she turned elsewhere, even if she hadn't intended for it to go so terribly wrong. The fallout from the catfishing incident made her even more isolated. Kody used it as another reason to keep distance between them, and Meri bore the weight of public judgment. By the time the later seasons rolled around, Meri's role in the family felt almost non-existent. She was rarely seen laughing, rarely seen included in happy moments. The other wives had their struggles too, but Meri seemed different, colder, lonelier, more permanent. Her eyes often told the story her words didn't. When Kody talked about his connection with Robyn, Meri's face would tighten. When family activities happened without her involvement, her smile looked forced. When Kody openly admitted he wasn't interested in intimacy with her, her expression went blank, as though she had been expecting it but still couldn't believe he said it out loud. The years of neglect were an emotional drain, not only on her marriage but on her own spirit. She transformed from the bright, optimistic first wife to a woman that many fans hardly recognized anymore. Fans didn't merely watch this, they felt it. Many of them became intensely protective of Meri, filling social media with encouraging messages at the end of each episode. Meri deserves so much better than this. It hurts my heart to see her treated like she doesn't count. Why does she remain with a man who obviously doesn't care about her? Others became frustrated, wishing she would have the guts to leave. But whether they pitied her, empathized with her, or wanted to shake her into action, fans agreed on one thing: Meri was being ignored, and it was painful to witness. Meri's years of being sidelined became more than just her personal story. It became a symbol of what happens when loyalty turns into self-neglect. She spoke for the hundreds of spouses who remain in marriages long after love has passed away, the partners who hold on to hope for change, even when the other has lost hope. Her silent agony was one of the most discussed arcs in the show, because it was unfiltered, realistic, and heartbreaking. And that's why her final announcement was so powerful. When Meri finally announced she was moving on, it wasn't about closing a door. It was about closing a chapter that had been open for way too long. The years of being neglected shaped her for so long that the fans started to question whether she'd ever get out of them. But now that we look back, those years just make her departure even more uplifting. Because the deeper the hurt, the sweeter the victory when you finally emerge. When it was announced by fans that Meri declared her independence, most of them weren't shocked. They experienced a bittersweet rush of relief. Because for so long they had watched her suffer from one of the saddest roles in the Brown family being ignored. Meri wasn't always the forgotten wife. She was the first companion of Kody, the woman who established the family as a unit. She preceded the fame, the cameras, and the world's knowledge of the name Sister Wives. And yet, with time, her place evolved from being the central figure to being treated as if she were invisible. The question that fans always pondered was, how did it come to this? How did the woman who started it all end up sitting silently in the background, her pain visible to millions of viewers, while her husband openly showered affection on others? The story of Meri's years of being ignored is one of the most emotional arcs in the entire series. When Meri and Kody married in 1990, theirs was a love story full of hope and excitement. She was his first wife, his lawful wife, and the one who shared in the vision of having a big, plural family. They shared their faith, their vision, and the notion of being different from the world around them. For Meri, the early years were promising ones. She was more than a partner. She was Kody's confidant, the woman to whom he turned as they embarked on their unconventional lifestyle. Fans tend to forget that in the early pages, Meri and Kody had a relationship that seemed to be impenetrable. But as the years passed, and more wives joined the family, cracks began to appear. When Janelle entered the marriage, followed later by Christine, the dynamics inevitably shifted. The household became more complex. The responsibilities multiplied, and Kody's attention was divided. But it was with the arrival of Robyn, wife number 4, that Meri's position truly began to unravel. Robyn soon became Kody's preferred wife, a reality that was not kept under wraps from viewers and the rest of the women. The attraction between Kody and Robyn was palpable. And although some of the wives grappled in silence, the struggle that seemed the most profound was that of Meri. She transformed from Kody's soul to the always hoping for leftovers wife. Robyn also introduced the legal issues. In order for Kody to be legally married to Robyn and adopt Robyn's children, he had to divorce Meri. Although Meri was okay with it then, admitting later on that she wanted to be supportive, the decision cut deeper than anyone could have ever imagined. It wasn't just a legal change, it was an emotional cut. Suddenly Meri wasn't even Kody's legal wife any longer. She became just a spiritual wife. And that symbolism cut deeply. What hurt Meri even more was that Kody was so forthcoming about not wanting to work on fixing their marriage. On TV, in front of the world, he said that he did not view them as being in a romantic relationship anymore. He owned up to having no desire for intimacy with her, and that whatever it was that they shared is over. For any wife, the words would be catastrophic. For Meri, who'd already lived years of rejection, they were like a confirmation in the negative that she was unwanted anymore. The expression on her face during such moments said it all. She wasn't merely being ignored, she was being erased. And yet she remained. Fans were conflicted. Many sympathized with her, while others became exasperated, wondering why won't she leave. The reason wasn't easy. For one, Meri's faith played a huge role. As part of a religious culture that values commitment and loyalty, walking away wasn't something she could easily do. She also held on to the hope that one day, things might change. After all, she had built decades of history with Kody. Wasn't it worth fighting for? And then there was the family itself. Leaving Kody didn't just mean leaving him, It meant stepping away from the entire Brown clan, the sisters she had lived with for so long, the children she helped raise, the lifestyle she had once chosen with pride. That kind of detachment isn't easy, even when you're hurting. The middle years of Sister Wives were especially hard to watch for Meri fans. She became a ghost in her own family. Group discussions revealed her sitting quietly, usually on the edge of the couch, or at the end of the table. Her voice was quiet, nearly tentative, as though she didn't wish to disturb the others. While all this was going on, Kody tended to brush her worries aside or gloss over her emotions. More than once, he discussed her as if she were an encumbrance, not a spouse. All the romance between them had disappeared, and even Meri acknowledged that she felt invisible. This wasn't editing, nor was it dramatization. It was reality. The seriousness in her looks, the eye contact evasion, the fidgety laughter whenever uncomfortable topics were raised, viewers could read between the lines. Meri was hurting, and she hurt silently. Sounded to her pain was the notorious catfishing scandal. Being alone and vulnerable, Meri went into online dating with one she thought was a man who was interested in her. It became one of the most embarrassing public moments of her life as it ended up being a woman misleading her. The scandal was being held over her again and again, by Kody, by the family, even by fans who judged her decisions. What everybody missed though was what the scandal showed. Meri craved attention, validation, someone to love her again. She hadn't gotten it from Kody in years. And so she turned elsewhere, even if she hadn't intended for it to go so terribly wrong. The fallout from the catfishing incident made her even more isolated. Kody used it as another reason to keep distance between them, and Meri bore the weight of public judgment. By the time the later seasons rolled around, Meri's role in the family felt almost non-existent. She was rarely seen laughing, rarely seen included in happy moments. The other wives had their struggles too. But Meri seemed different, colder, lonelier, more permanent. Her eyes often told the story her words didn't. When Kody talked about his connection with Robin, Meri's face would tighten. When family activities happened without her involvement, her smile looked forced. When Kody openly admitted he wasn't interested in intimacy with her, her expression went blank, as though she had been expecting it but still couldn't believe he said it out loud. The years of neglect were an emotional drain, not only on her marriage, but on her own spirit. She transformed from the bright, optimistic first wife to a woman that many fans hardly recognized anymore. Fans didn't merely watch this, they felt it. Many of them became intensely protective of Meri, filling social media with encouraging messages at the end of each episode. Meri deserves so much better than this. It hurts my heart to see her treated like she doesn't count. Why does she remain with a man who obviously doesn't care about her? Others became frustrated, wishing she would have the guts to leave. But whether they pitied her, empathized with her, or wanted to shake her into action, fans agreed on one thing: Meri was being ignored, and it was painful to witness. Meri's years of being sidelined became more than just her personal story. It became a symbol of what happens when loyalty turns into self-neglect. She spoke for the hundreds of spouses who remain in marriages long after love has passed away, the partners who hold on to hope for change, even when the other has lost hope. Her silent agony was one of the most discussed arcs in the show, because it was unfiltered, realistic, and heartbreaking. And that's why her final announcement was so powerful. When Meri finally announced she was moving on, it wasn't about closing a door, it was about closing a chapter that had been open for way too long. The years of being neglected shaped her for so long that the fans started to question whether she'd ever get out of them. But now that we look back, those years just make her departure even more uplifting. Because the deeper the hurt, the sweeter the victory when you finally emerge. When people talk about life-changing moments, they often think of something loud, an explosive fight, a dramatic exit, a public declaration. But for Meri Brown, the turning point wasn't one single fireworks moment. It was a series of quiet choices, small sparks of independence, and steady shifts in her outlook that eventually lit the path to her freedom. Fans had witnessed her sorrow for years. They'd watched her experience rejection, loneliness, and humiliation in front of the entire country on national television. But then, gradually, almost quietly at first, Meri started to change. The woman once stuck in a cycle of heartbreak began to reappear, not as Kody's wife, not as the forgotten spouse, but as Meri, a confident, independent woman who had finally ceased waiting for someone else to determine her value. This was the turning point in her story, the moment she began choosing herself. At first, the signs were subtle. Meri's social media presence began to shift. Instead of posting vague, melancholy quotes about loneliness or heartbreak, she started sharing messages of resilience and self-empowerment. Quotes about growth, about finding strength within, about letting go of things that no longer serve you. To the outside world, they may have appeared as mere inspirational messages, but to fans who had been witnessing her experiences, they were unmistakable messages. Meri was healing, rebuilding her mind, and processing. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but the seeds were being planted. One of the most visible steps in Meri's transformation was her commitment to her bed and breakfast, Lizzie's Heritage Inn. Located in Parowan, Utah, the inn wasn't just a business venture. It was her family's historic property, a piece of her personal identity, and a project she could fully call her own. Operating the inn provided her with something beyond Kody, beyond the family, beyond the drama. It belonged to her. She put her energy, time, and love into creating it, and fans saw how her face would light up whenever she spoke of it. Unlike her marriage, which was filled with rejection and limitations, the inn represented growth, opportunity, and a sense of accomplishment. It became a symbol of Meri's independence, a reminder that she didn't need Kody to validate her. Another part of her turning point came through the people she surrounded herself with. Over time, Meri built strong friendships outside the family circle, people who saw her for who she was, not just as Kody's wife. These friendships were a source of happiness, laughter, and confidence. Fans observed that when she was with friends, she smiled differently, unforced, genuine, free. These were the moments when viewers caught a glimpse of the real Meri, the woman beyond loneliness and sadness. Those relationships reminded her that she was lovable, valuable, and worth being happy. And gradually that began to seep in. Another change was her openness to travel and see the world beyond the walls of the plural family. Whether it was business trips, adventures with friends, or personal vacations, Meri began experiencing the world without Kody by her side. For a woman who'd had decades of being bound to one man and one family situation, these trips were free. They provided her with a glimpse of independence, a peek at what life might be like if she no longer waited for Kody to change. They noticed her putting up pictures of herself hiking, adventuring, grinning in the sunlight. They were in stark contrast to what fans had come to expect to see on Sister Wives. Meri quietly sitting at the far end of the couch as Kody turned a blind eye to her. Travel wasn't just about seeing new places, it was about seeing herself in a new light. Perhaps the biggest shift in Meri's turning point was internal. For years she clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, Kody would return to her. That one day he'd look at her the way he looked at Robin. That he'd remember the love they once had. But at some point she stopped waiting. That's what made this moment so compelling. The turning point wasn't a fight with Kody, or a conflict. It was a silent internal choice. She had finally understood that the love she desired wasn't returning, and no loyalty, patience, or hardship would alter that. Letting go of false hope is one of the most difficult things anyone can possibly do, but it is also one of the most liberating. For Meri, it was the moment she stopped being a ghost in someone else's story, and started becoming the author of her own. Viewers of Sister Wives are some of the most loyal fans in reality TV, and they began noticing these changes. Social media lit up with comments about Meri's glow-up, her newfound strength, and her subtle independence. Meri looks happier than I've ever seen her. She doesn't need Kody, look at her thriving. This is the Meri we've been waiting for. Her fans didn't merely witness her change, they cheered it on. After years of watching her endure, they rejoiced in every baby step she made towards liberty. Notably, as Meri transitioned, Kody remained blind, or at least impassive. He'd already established that he wasn't interested in taking a relationship with her, and therefore her steps towards independence didn't elicit much of a response from him. In a sense, his neglect freed her. Without the stress of having to win his love, she was able to care for herself. The less attention he paid her, the more attention she paid to herself. And while that might have stung in the past, By this point, it felt more like a release. If Mary's years of being ignored were marked by silence and sadness, her turning point was marked by a different kind of quiet power. She didn't make an announcement in the midst of fanfare. She didn't walk out with cameras. She just started living differently, basing investments in herself, smiling bigger, spreading positivity, and showing the world that she was bigger than the role that she had been assigned in Kody's life. It was subtle, but it was undeniable. The woman who once sat silently on the edge of family discussions was now standing tall in her own world. This turning point carried symbolism far beyond Mary's personal life. It became a reflection of what happens when someone who has been overlooked finally chooses themselves. For many viewers, Mary's transformation wasn't just entertainment, it was inspiration. It showed that no matter how long you've been stuck in pain, it's never too late to turn the page. Her narrative reminded everyone that independence does not necessarily arrive with anger or bitterness. It can arrive with peace, faith, and simply the choice to stop waiting around for someone else to understand your value. Her breakthrough is among the most effective because it was so obvious in its energy shift. Her smile seemed brighter. Her laugh sounded lighter. Her eyes, which had been weighed down by sadness, sparkled once more. Fans tend to refer to a glow-up when an individual transforms his or her life. And for Meri, the glow-up wasn't only physical but spiritual. You might notice it in the way she held herself. She walked with confidence. She spoke more clearly, and no longer did she measure her joy by Kody's approval. Looking back at Mary's journey, the tipping point wasn't leaving Kody alone. It was coming back to herself. She quit being the woman waiting on the sidelines and turned into the woman stepping into the spotlight of her own life. She quit looking for love in a person who had none to give and started finding love within herself. And that decision, quiet, steady, and deeply personal, became the foundation for everything that came next. The reason this turning point matters so much isn't just because it changed Mary's life, it's because it resonates with anyone who has ever felt ignored, unloved, or overlooked. Mary's journey shows that even after years of heartbreak, it's possible to reclaim your happiness. It shows that independence doesn't have to mean loneliness. It can mean freedom. And it shows that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is just stop waiting for someone else and start choosing yourself. This turning point wasn't the end of Mary's journey. It was the bridge to her new beginning. By releasing false hope and choosing independence, she paved the way for the big reveal. Her official departure, her new way of living, and perhaps a new romance. Had there been no such turning point, that revelation wouldn't have occurred. It was the moment when Meri broke free from defining herself based on her past and started becoming driven by her future. And that's why fans will always reminisce about this time as the time when everything flipped. When Kody Brown finally broke free and showed the world her new life, it wasn't in anger or drama. It was in grace, power, and a quiet strength that told 1,000 words. The fans had sat for years watching her live in the shadow of a marriage she was always relegated to the background. But when she finally emerged from that shadow, the world witnessed something that was nothing but breathtaking. This was not the Meri who sat quietly as Kody pushed her away. This was not the woman holding on to love that had long since passed her by. This was Meri, strong, beautiful, and determined to show the world that her tale did not involve heartache. It began again with a bold reveal of her new beginning. Meri said reveal wasn't subtle. On social media and in interviews, she finally spoke openly about her journey, her pain, her growth, and her decision to choose herself. For the first time, she said in clear terms what fans had been thinking for years. She deserved better than being ignored. She didn't speak with bitterness or rage. Instead, her words carried a sense of peace, as though she had finally put down the heavy weight she'd been carrying. I spent too many years waiting for something that wasn't going to happen, she admitted in one emotional moment. Now, I'm choosing me. I'm choosing happiness. That simple statement resonated with thousands of individuals. Her authenticity, her openness, and her courage made her reveal a moment of victory. When Meri appeared publicly after abandoning Kody behind, fans were amazed at how different she looked. She was different, not only in appearance, but in attitude. Her dress changed to brighter, more vibrant hues. She styled her hair with ease. Her makeup was light, her stance firm, but of course there was more than the physical. She exuded happiness. The sorrow that had been written on her face before was erased, replaced by a glow that fans had not seen in years. This was the Meri people knew from season 1, the optimistic dreamer, but now grown, aged and wiser than ever. The glow-up wasn't merely physical. It was emotional, spiritual, and indisputable. For decades Meri had defined herself by being one of Kody Brown's wives. Now she was finally free to create herself without that moniker. And the manner in which she wrapped herself in independence astonished even her most devoted fans. She started to feature her business endeavors with renewed pride. Her bed and breakfast was no longer a side business. It was her central platform. She welcomed visitors, advertised it freely, and even held events that enabled her to engage with advocates. She leaned all the way into her LuLaRoe entrepreneurial pursuits, as well as traveling, people-orienting, and seizing control of her financial independence. No longer bound by the limitations of polygamy, she was calling the shots on her own terms and flourishing because of it. The world saw a woman who had been underestimated for too long finally take charge of her destiny. Meri said social media feeds became windows into her new adventures. She traveled more than ever before, visiting new cities, exploring new cultures and embracing life beyond the small world she had once known. Her photographs indicated her hiking trails, events, smiling among friends, and even posting playful, nonchalant selfies that fans were not accustomed to seeing from her. Each excursion seemed to represent her liberty. Each escapade another reminder she was no longer stuck at home, waiting on a man who never arrived. Her travels weren't just vacations, they were acts of liberation. Part of Meri's transformation was also about the people she surrounded herself with. Instead of toxic dynamics or one-sided relationships, she built a circle of positivity. Her closest friends became like family, and fans often commented on how much happier she looked when she was with them. They laughed together, supported each other, and reminded Meri that she was loved, deeply and genuinely. This new circle wasn't about obligation or duty. It was about choice. For the first time in a long time, Meri was choosing relationships that filled her soul rather than drained it. One of the most exciting parts of Meri's reveal came when fans began speculating about a new romance. She never confirmed anything outright, but subtle clues, smiles in photos, cryptic captions, and the undeniable glow sparked rumors that she might be seeing someone new. Whether or not she had a new boyfriend, the vibe around her hinted that she was ready for love again. And this time, it wouldn't be love that made her wait, beg, or become invisible. It would be love that matched her power, her value, and her path. Although she was not yet with someone new, viewers could sense that the door to that reality was open very wide. Meri became more confident in her independence and also discovered her voice in ways she had not before. She started sharing more candidly about her struggles, her healing journey, and what the future held. On Instagram Lives, interviews, and fan interactions, she didn't mince words. She truthfully discussed the hurt of being dismissed, the isolation of being in a loveless marriage, and the strength it took to finally leave. But she didn't linger on the pain. She turned quickly to empowerment, constantly reminding her listeners that healing is possible, that happiness is a choice, and that nobody deserves less than they want. Her words resonated not just with Sister Wives fans, but with anyone who had ever felt stuck in a relationship that wasn't serving them. One of the most impressive parts of Meri's new life reveal was how she leaned into her entrepreneurial side. Instead of being seen only as a reality TV star, she began positioning herself as a leader, a motivator, and a businesswoman. Her bed and breakfast prospered, her business enterprises grew, and she started inspiring others with her path of self-support. For years, Kody had disregarded her dreams and behaved as though her voice didn't count. Now Meri was demonstrating that not only did her voice count, but it could also inspire thousands of individuals. She was no longer the silent wife. She was a leader in her own right. Perhaps the most powerful part of Meri's new life reveal was the message she shared with her fans. Over and over again, She reminded people that strength often comes from the hardest seasons of life. She urged women to believe in themselves, to refuse to settle, and to welcome the chance for a new start regardless of their circumstances or age. Her journey was no longer about her. It had become a map for others who needed hope. Meri's comeback demonstrated that pain doesn't get to define you. In fact, it can mold you into the strongest version of yourself. When Meri came out with her new life, the response from fans was on fire. Social media overflowed with love, admiration, and tears of happiness. Meri is glowing. This is what freedom looks like. I've never been prouder of her. She's proof that it's never too late to start over. For years, viewers had wanted to see her find happiness, and now, watching her live freely and confidently felt like a collective victory. Fans weren't just watching a TV storyline, they were watching a woman they cared about reclaim her life. Meri quote, "Seen new life reveal wasn't just personal, it was cultural. It pushed back against the narrative that women in polygamy, or women in unhappy marriages have to stay silent or settle. She demonstrated that you can leave, that you can start over, that you can shine again after years of being muted. It wasn't about destroying Kody, it was about strengthening herself, and that distinction made her unlock even stronger. At every smile, every vacation, every business achievement, every happy post, freedom became the signpost. Meri wasn't living for herself anymore. She was living as evidence that life after heartbreak exists. Her new life wasn't about revenge, competition, or regret. It was about peace, independence, and joy. That's why the reveal hit so hard. Because it wasn't just Meri's story. It was a story that echoed in the hearts of anyone who had ever been stuck and dreamed of breaking free. Meri quote, "Scene reveal wasn't the end, it was the beginning of her next chapter. She'd proved to the world that she could walk away from what no longer benefited her, that she could shine again after having been extinguished, and that she could light the way for others by living true to herself." The new life reveal wasn't about the past, it was about the future. And for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. When Kody Brown boldly left Kody and unveiled her new life as an independent woman, the world reacted, and it reacted big. For all those years, her fans had quietly cheered for her, empathizing with her agony, frustration, and desire for love and respect. Now that she claimed her own happiness at last, there was a tidal wave of emotion on social media, news channels, and fan clubs everywhere. The reaction wasn't just about entertainment, it was personal. Meri's journey resonated because it reflected struggles millions face, staying in relationships too long, feeling invisible, and finally finding the courage to choose oneself. The announcement became a cultural moment that extended far beyond sister wives. The moment her reveal hit the public, social media erupted. Twitter hashtags like #MeriBrown, #NewBeginning, and #Independent Meri started trending within hours. Fans flooded comment sections, expressing everything from joy and admiration to relief that she had finally stepped into her own power. "I've been waiting for this moment for years. Meri is finally free and thriving. She's proof that strength comes from within." Instagram feeds were filled with congratulatory posts. TikTok videos hailed her transformation through before and after videos, her glow up, and motivational quotes. All the fans who had ever rooted for her struggle now felt as if they were collectively winning. Meri had become more than a reality TV star. She had become a symbol of empowerment, and fans couldn't stop sharing it. It wasn't just fans who reacted. Major media outlets quickly caught on to Meri's reveal. Entertainment websites, celebrity blogs, and even mainstream news outlets covered her story. Headlines included, "Kody Brown breaks free. A life of independence after years of heartache. From invisible wife to empowered woman. Meri's stunning transformation. Sister wives Kody Brown teaches the world how to move on with dignity." The media commended her bravery, presenting her as a tale of strength, self-discovery, and empowerment. Relationship experts, wellness professionals, and self-help experts even weighed in, referencing Meri as a study in overcoming adversity after decades of being ignored and emotionally battered. This widespread attention amplified her story, turning her personal journey into a public movement of inspiration. Within the devoted Sister Wives fan base, Discussion threads lit up for days. Reddit threads, Facebook fan pages, and private fan groups became hubs of conversation about Meri's announcement. Her photos were picked apart by fans, examined for insight into her captions, and cheered for every indication of joy in her new life. Personal anecdotes were shared by numerous fans about how her bravery prompted them to change their own lives. Here's what one fan posted: "Seeing Meri take that first step into her own life makes me believe that I can do the same thing. I've been in a relationship where I didn't exist, and now there is hope." Another contributor wrote, "It's amazing how she turned pain into power. Meri's journey isn't just TV drama, it's life-changing." These fan reactions weren't just emotional. They were affirming the impact her story had on real people's lives. Even celebrities weighed in. Some reality TV stars publicly congratulated Meri on social media, praising her strength and independence. Others shared messages of support, expressing admiration for her courage to leave a toxic dynamic and prioritize herself. These reactions added another layer of validation for fans, reinforcing the narrative that Meri's decision was not only right but inspiring on a universal level. The most profound aspect of the public reaction was how it became empowering for viewers, especially women. Many commented that Meri's journey gave them the courage to reevaluate their own relationships. "If Meri can find strength after decades of pain, so can I. Meri Kamos hesitated to leave my own unhappy marriage. Her tale proves it's never too late." Experts and lifestyle bloggers pointed to her story as a testament of self-respect and personal growth. They underscored leaving things that no longer work for you, becoming independent, and being happy away from bad relationships. Meri's exit and new life weren't just entertainment. They became a learning experience, a motivational lesson for countless viewers. Of course, not every reaction was positive. Some critics accused her of timing the announcement for publicity. Others criticized her past choices, questioning why she had stayed in an unhappy marriage for so long. But even cynics couldn't help but acknowledge the force of her transformation. Several of them admitted that whether her reveal was intended or not, the effect was unmistakable. Meri had taken back her life. The varied responses only intensified the discussion, keeping her tale in the spotlight and stoking even more debate online. While the support was being savored by the fans, responses among the Brown clan were subdued but no less meaningful. Christine and Janelle were said to have voiced their approval, applauding Meri for being independent and happy. Kody's response was otherwise absent in the public. Some fans read this as him showing lack of interest, while others opined that it was evidence of guilt or realization that he had lost a very important aspect of the family. Even Robin, who was generally regarded as the favorite wife, attested to the bravery of Meri indirectly via social media, demonstrating that her departure was unavoidable. The family's reactions, combined with fan and media responses, underscored how impactful Meri's transformation had become. Social media wasn't just a platform, it was a megaphone for Meri's story. Every tweet, Instagram post, TikTok video, and YouTube comment amplified the narrative that she had reclaimed her life. People made memes, inspiring videos, and even video montages of her glow-up. Her narrative was a trending issue several times, and hashtags linked her journey to larger movements regarding women's empowerment, self-respect, and emotional freedom. The digital response was that in the new era, individual change can be heard around the world, touching people far beyond the reach of one TV show. What made this response so different from normal celebrity news was that the fans had an emotional connection to Meri. They'd watched for years as she struggled, cried with her, sympathized with her, and rejoiced in her tiny triumphs. Meri's exit became cathartic for fans. It was a collective sigh of relief, a validation that waiting and suffering aren't necessary for happiness. Her story became proof that taking control of your life, even after decades of heartbreak, is possible. While most of the reaction came from Sister Wives fans in the US, the story quickly reached international audiences. People from different countries commented on her journey, sharing their own experiences with toxic relationships and neglect. The universality of her story, being overlooked, undervalued, and finding the courage to reclaim your life, resonated worldwide. Meri's personal journey became a global narrative about resilience, self-worth, and empowerment. Beyond immediate fan reactions, Meri's story inspired a new generation. Young viewers saw that it's possible to prioritize oneself, make bold choices, and pursue independence. Parents, life coaches, and mentors were even talking about her story as a role model of courage in the midst of emotional adversity. To young fans who had grown up on reality TV as entertainment, Meri became the epitome of emotional intelligence and self-respect. Her experience was no longer hers alone. It had transcended into a lesson for anyone wanting to rise above fear, neglect, or heartbreak. Weeks and months after her reveal, the conversation about Kody Brown didn't die down. Fans continued to track her new adventures, business milestones, and social updates. Every new post reminded people of her bravery and reinforced the impact of her journey. Meri's story had transcended reality TV. It had become a movement, a symbol of empowerment, and an inspiration to countless viewers. Her exit, her glow-up, and her reclaimed independence will be remembered as one of the most powerful moments in Sister Wives history. Meri's journey shows the power of persistence, self-love, and courage. The overwhelming reaction from fans, media, and even strangers around the world proves that her story matters. It resonates because it's real. It resonates because it's relatable. And it resonates because it shows that even after years of being ignored, overlooked, and undervalued, it's never too late to find yourself and create a life full of joy, independence, and love. The public will never forget the way Meri emerged from the shadows and into the life she was destined to have, and how the public response would be a testament to the lasting power of her courage, determination, and unbreakable spirit.